Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the monthly album roundup, and we're talking about every album that I listened to in all of April 2024, and I listened to a lot this past month. I don't even know what really got into me, but I listened to so much. So much for me. I'm sure I'm gonna say these numbers and people are gonna scoff and be like, what? That's not that much. I listen to way more. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So I listen to a lot, and we're going to be talking about 14 albums that I finished in throughout the month. We'll do that. Of course, right away, I will say that there was a 15th record that I started. I just didn't finish it, and that is the record Sinners Never Sleep by Yumi at 6. So that will be tentatively unranked when I get to the ranking portion of the video. And I probably won't talk about it too much because, again, I just haven't finished the record. As well as that, I did listen to, or I re-listened to, Schmaltz by Spanish Love Songs. And I did want to talk about that with some actual notes this time around as well, which I listened to in January this year in full for the first time, and I just really wanted to come back to it at a certain point, and yeah. So, talking about this record again, I said Brave Faces is definitely a natural next step from Schmaltz, and I said I really love this album. It's very good, and I'd say if Brave Faces to me is a 10 out of 10, then Schmaltz is a 9 out of 10, for sure. And then, re-listening on April 20th, 2024, which is the day that I re-listened to the record, I said also a note before getting to the song specifically, this album just feels like the blueprint for Brave Faces, a necessary first step to get to the follow-up. Brave Faces is the most refined version. Brave Faces is the more refined version of Schmaltz, while Schmaltz is more raw. And I said also, the guitar in so many of the songs here is just so standout. Even some just smaller riffs and guitar lines are just so good and memorable, and I felt it was worth mentioning. Now, I did have a note from back in January for the song Nuevo, the opening track, which I said is a very interesting way to open up the record. It starts off slow, mainly focusing on Dylan's vocals. The instrumental picks up late and transitions smoothly into track 2, and I said, an additional note for the song, I still really like Nuevo as an opening track, and I love how seamlessly it transitions into sequels, remakes, and adaptations. Speaking of which, sequels, remakes, and adaptations, instrumentally is more hardcore, and I'm really here for it. It's still also very much Spanish Love Songs, and even if I went backwards to this record, starting with Brave Faces first, moving to No Joy, and then coming back to Schmaltz, it's still very Spanish Love Songs at the end of the day, and I love that. Then I said they bring things down again with Bellyache. Things obviously pick up after the intro, and God, this is so good. This is a big reason why I love Spanish Love Songs. I love the guitar in Buffalo Buffalo. And I said in some ways, this is a sort of prequel to Dolores on Brave Faces. They both deal with mass shootings, and this is also very good. It is probably the best chorus so far. Then we have Otis / Carl, which I said is clearly about not getting in touch with a loved one when they're close to death. And all the feelings that come from that just start eating you alive. And I was like, fuck, this hits hard. Maybe a little too hard. The opening line to The Boy Considers His Haircut is genuinely great because it's real. So the opening line is, my dad says that I'd probably have more fans if I could learn to sing about some happier shit. Instead of wallowing in my shortcomings, my gross insecurities, be less narcissistic, maybe show some humility. That's the first stanza. And yeah, it's real. It's super real, and that's why it's great. And I said, I have to assume there are people who have tried to get into the band Spanish Love Songs, but just can't, because even for emo, it's an acquired taste. It's all real issues and not just relationship melodrama. Which, in saying that, I love a lot of, like, your more typical emo, quote unquote. I love a lot of that, you know? I just love the genre. But again, a lot of it is just dealing with relationships and melodrama and all the stuff that comes with that. And Spanish Love Songs doesn't really talk about that. And so I understand why they would be an acquired taste, you know? But in saying that, I also felt the need to mention that the bass in The Boy Considers His Haircut is super standout, and I love that. I also said I love the failed take at the beginning of El Nino Considers His Failures. And I said this is another great song that just keeps playing into the rest of the record to this point. Joanna in 5 Acts is just a great all-around song with a really banging chorus, and I also love the guitar in the bridge. And I said I really love Beer and NyQuil, Hold It Together. It's just so good like the rest of the album. And I said I also like the lyrical callback from this into Beachfront Property on Brave Faces with the lines about pissing in the wind. Figuratively speaking, of course. Yeah, so that was a cool lyrical callback for Brave Faces and Beachfront Property. Then I said, again, I love It's Not Interesting. I really like the build-up after everyone drops out late in the song, and it's a big highlight. And then Aloha to No One starts with a bunch of background conversations with an acoustic guitar coming in. It's a similar way to close that we had to open the record, and I love this as a way to close, but I'm also a big sucker for acoustic songs. And yeah, I really, really love this record. It's not my favorite. I think Brave Faces is still their best, and I'd call it a perfect record. It's probably my favorite record of ever at this point. But Schmaltz is still so good. It's so super strong. And I would definitely recommend listening to this if you are familiar in any way with Spanish Love Songs. And yeah, I did do a ranking, of course. I said my favorite song was Otis/Carl. Then Aloha to No One, It's Not Interesting, Buffalo Buffalo, Beer and NyQuil, Hold It Together, Joanna in 5 Acts, The Boy Considers His Haircut, El Nino Considers His Failures, Bellyache, Nuevo, and then sequels, remakes, and adaptations. But I loved the entire record. Now, in saying that, that was Schmaltz, which I will not be ranking in this video. That is in the January video. You can check that one out. And I will say, on top of it all, that I want to say I already had said Schmaltz was my number one anyway, and this just reinforces it for sure. The first record I actually listened to in April, I listened to it on April 2nd and came back and finished it on April 21st, 2024. It's album number 22 of the year in total, and that is Green Day's newest record, Saviors. And I said for the opening track, The American Dream Is Killing Me, I said this really just feels like a trademark Green Day song. It's good, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be one of the weakest songs on here. And this song definitely deserves a shout out for being real, though, because yeah. Look Ma, No Brains, is genuinely great. It's kind of silly, but I think I prefer it to the lead single. And I said, I know a lot of people really like Bobby's Socks, and it's literally a song for bisexuals made by a bi guy. And it's absolutely great, easily the best so far, of the first three anyway. I said that opening riff in One-Eyed Bastard is very familiar, and I sat there, like, I paused the song, and I just sat there thinking. I was on my lunch break at the time, and I was just sitting there thinking, it's like, wait, why is this so familiar? And then it immediately hit me. That is literally the na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na in Pink So What. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, it is exactly the same. And, like, both songs are good. I don't love One-Eyed Bastard. But I do like it fine enough. I think it's fine. But I do say I feel like the song goes on a bit too long, which is a bad thing when it's not even 3 minutes. Dilemma is great. That chorus is so good. It also hits harder because of Billy's past alcohol issues, and it's easily the best so far. I love that bridge, and I think what really puts the song at the top for me is Billy's vocal melody in the chorus is just so good. Like, all-timer vocal melody from Billy. I just said 1981 is also really good. That's all I said. I said I really like the music at the start of Goodnight Adeline. I like this a lot, and the solo is great too. Banger. I said, ooh, I really like the guitar at the beginning of Coma City. I really like everyone's contributions to this song. Billy's guitar is great, Mike has some standout bass work, and Trey is, of course, killing it. I definitely understand why a lot of people say 1981 through Corvette Summer is very strong. All of these songs are just very good. Obviously, I'm just a fan of punk and Green Day, and this song is just fun to listen to. And that would be Corvette Summer. And weirdly, Corvette Summer reminds me a bit of some classic Southern rock. Like, specifically the solos remind me of some classic Southern rock solos. So I thought that was interesting. Then we have Susie Chapstick, which I said starts off slower than the last few. This is giving some classic 90s alt-rock vibes to me, and I'm absolutely here for it. God, I really like this. There's just something about the chorus that I love. The opening to Strange Days Are Here to Stay is very familiar to the band's past. The vocal melody in the verses remind me of the melody of the title track to Revolution Radio's chorus. And that solo is cool too. Living in the 20s is an in-your-face political banger. It's pretty fucking real, and the solo rules too. This kind of goes harder than Dilemma, but I don't quite prefer it. Father to a Son is another softer song being led by an acoustic guitar. Those strings after the first chorus, I love this. And, like, I love when, like, Rob Cavallo is producing Green Day, and he just adds strings to, like, the background music, the background instrumental. Because I'm like, yes, keep doing that. Keep doing that. The strings are why Good Riddance is great. Anyway, carry on. I already like Saviors, the title track, a lot. It's a good title track. Not the best song on the record, but still a strong song. And then Fancy Sauce is the closing track. It starts off softer again, and I like the instrumental, but I do agree with the criticism that this song feels outdated in its message. It really is like a very 90s portrayal of mental health awareness. Not great, and that's a shame because I really do like the music, the instrumental behind it a lot. But in saying all of that, Saviors was a really good record for Green Day. I like a lot of, like, post-American Idiot Green Day. And I would still say, yeah, this is easily their best record since American Idiot, for sure. And yeah, my ranking is my favorite track. I think the best one is Dilemma, easily. But then I have Father to a Son, Strange Days Are Here to Stay, Susie Chapstick, Saviors, Living in the 20s, Corvette Summer, Coma City, Goodnight Adeline, Bobby Sox, 1981, Look Ma, No Brains, Fancy Sauce, One-Eyed Bastard, and The American Dream Is Killing Me. And like I predicted earlier in the, I guess this part of the review, I did indeed think The American Dream Is Killing Me is the weakest on the record. Again, it's a fine song, but even when it first released, I wasn't that into it. I thought it was, like, very repetitive. That can work, especially for punk, but, like, I don't know, there's something about the repetition of this song specifically that just didn't click with me. But next up, we're getting to my, very long and lengthy re-listening to basically everything 3 Days Grace has ever done. So here we go. I will say a lot of these, I think all of these are basically going to be in a row. Yeah, these are all basically in a row. So, if you're listening and you don't give a shit about 3 Days Grace, I will put a timestamp, like, right here on the screen, in the description, whatever, for you to just skip past this. And move on to something past this. But yeah. But for those of you who are interested, I've got a lot of things to say here, as 3 Days Grace was, I've said it so many times before, but 3 Days Grace was, like, one of the first bands really the first band that I ever got super into, and they became my favorite band just because I liked them and no one else really like helped me like them, got me into them. So that being said, um, I feel very strongly about them in a bunch of different ways and have a lot of thoughts. But the first album that I revisited is one that I hadn't listened to. Most of their records I actually had not revisited, listened to in full since early 2019. So like at the time, like 5 years basically, 5 plus years. And the first one I started was the first album with Matt Walsh being the front man of the band, Human, which I even said right away. Note before talking about the album, I've listened to some of this record a lot, but I haven't listened to it in full since early 2019, 5 plus years ago. After listening, I honestly have a new appreciation for the record. I don't think it's bad, but as of right now, I still think it's their weakest. I did like some songs that I found forgettable. I don't hate Landmine, and some songs I liked, I really didn't care for now. And the opening track is the song Human Race. And I said, genuinely, I still like this song. It's a really fitting way to open this record, and I really like the solo on the bridge. Admittedly, there's not a lot of lyrical diversity, but I'd like to think that that was intentional, given, like, the record. And yeah, generally, I don't have an issue with Human Race. I do think, like, I do like it, genuinely. Then we move on to Painkiller, and I said I really don't like Matt's vocals in the verses. The verses feel like peak Matt trying too hard, and also this really feels like them trying to recreate their biggest moments. I do like the bridge though. God damn it, I've got to stop saying that, because I'm notorious for, especially with 3 Days Grace specifically, I'm notorious for talking about the bridge of their songs. I've got to stop saying that. I literally wrote that in the script. I think, not script, but the notes for the albums. It's not a script. Anyway, I think I'd generally come back to Human Race before this song, though, and I would, and I have in the past as well. Fallen Angel, I said I still like the song, but I don't think it's as good as I once did. Once again, though, the bridge does slap. Landmine, God, my first time listening to this in a long time. It's not as bad as I once thought. It's still absolutely a ready-made WWE entrance theme, but I was way too harsh on it. The melody in the chorus is similar to The Good Left Undone by Rise Against, though, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, and funny enough, I think I prefer this to Painkiller now, which is crazy, because I used to fucking hate Landmine, one of the worst songs I ever... I said it was one of the worst songs I've ever written. I don't agree with that now, but yeah... I don't like it, but I do prefer it to Painkiller. But note at the end of it, this song, it's still very generic. It's painfully generic. And now, I'm already not feeling Tell Me Why that much either. Which is a shame, because Tell Me Why, again, I thought was a really good, solid song with Matt in the band. And now I was not feeling it whatsoever. It's got the kind of try-hardy vocals from Matt, and you can just tell exactly what they were trying to do with this song. I don't think it's bad, and I do like the instrumental, but I don't think I'd come back to it. I'd say only slightly better than Landmine. Unironically, I think I Am Machine is the best song so far. I think the vocals are better, the music is totally fine, and the lyrics work. Don't get me wrong, this is still very stock 3 Days Grace, but it does work, and I think it works well. The opening to So What is familiar. I mean, obviously, but I dig it. Again, it's still very 3 Days Grace, but I do think that the song works. It could be an On My Own situation for me, which, to say that again, the On My Own situation for me is... On My Own is notoriously a song for me that is always in one ear out the other, and I like it when I listen to it, but then I always forget about it, and I typically can't even tell you how the song goes once I just listen to it. So I said this could be an On My Own situation for me, but so far I like this quite a bit. I really like the instrumental right before the final chorus as well. Car Crash, we go from a song I genuinely like right back to a style of vocals that I just don't care for anymore. I don't hate this song though, but I do think it'll continue to be forgettable. Nothing's Fair in Love and War is a song I previously considered completely forgettable. So far, I don't dislike it. Again, I think it's fine, and I'm okay with the vocals, but I do think it'll continue to be completely forgettable, and the lyrics are so very edgy, though. Somehow, I feel Matt's vocals on One Too Many being tryhardy actually helps this song. Weirdly, I do, but yeah, One Too Many. I said the song definitely feels like it could be about addiction, and I don't mind this song at all, actually. I don't really like it, but I don't mind it. Once again, I'm kind of feeling the end is not the answer, actually. It honestly kind of feels like something we'd get on Outsider, which for me I think is definitely a positive. And the verses actually remind me of Infrared a little bit. I like this, but will it stay forgettable? A little bit. A little bit. And The Real You has always felt like a solid low-tempo ballad from this band. It's certainly not the best example of that, and also not the best closing track from this band. It is a song that fits to end this record, and I still like it. If there was one thing I'd change, I would like the harmonies sung by another person, and not just having Matt do everything vocally. And yeah, like I said, overall, I did have a bit more of an appreciation for Human, but I still think, well, okay, I don't think it's their weakest, but, it's one of their weakest for sure. It's only above Explosions in my head, and it's not great. It's still a very weak record, and I think it is interesting that I did have a bit more of an appreciation for it, you know? And I don't know, I don't know. I think some things do work. And for me, I guess the biggest thing to say is the things that work the best for me now are the few moments we get on this record where Matt's just not trying too hard. He's not trying to do like this really kind of like raspy, growly kind of voice. You know, he's not basically trying to do an impression of Adam, and not even a full impression of Adam, but like an impression of Adam in like very specific songs from like their high points, you know? And like those are the moments, the few moments we get stuff like that is the moments that I do like, you know? But otherwise, yeah, he's just being super edgy and try-hardy with the vocals, and like on so many of these songs, and there's still a lot that I think is completely forgettable, or he drags him down vocally. And like, don't get me wrong, the rest of the band's not really helping him either. Like the rest of the band are the rest of the band are playing some of their least interesting material on this record as well. Like there's not very much there's very little that's interesting in terms of guitar work. Like, I was not able to, like, pick out anything interesting from Brad's bass work. Neil's doing the very, very basic Neil-style drumming, you know? Like, so the rest of the band wasn't helping him either. And yeah, it's a very weak record overall. But I do have a ranking. I said my favorite song in the moment was The End Is Not the Answer, I Am Machine, So What, The Real You, Fallen Angel, One Too Many, Human Race, Tell Me Why, Nothing's Fair in Love and War, Car Crash, Land Mine, and Painkiller. And I would actually flip around The End Is Not the Answer and I Am Machine now. I do think I Am Machine is still the best song on the record. As The End Is Not the Answer has, again, a little bit forgettable still. So I'd flip those two around now. But then after that, I jumped all the way back to the first record from the band, the self-titled 3 Days Grace record on April 3rd. Was that the same day? It was, yes, April 3rd. And that was, so Human was album 23 on the same day, April 3rd, and then album 24, same day as well, April 3rd. Self-titled 3 Days Grace. I said right away, 5+ years later, of course, I now remember why I liked this record so much. It's not perfect, it's very post-grungy, but it is a solid record, and it has some less than stellar moments, but nothing is bad and feels like it belongs. I'm pleasantly surprised I still care for this record as much as I do. Burn kicks off with a cool, kind of long intro. Well, long intro for this band, anyway. Burn's chorus bangs. An interesting thing with this song is that the verses are quite short, just a couple of lines before the pre-chorus. The post-grunge is strong in this song, but it genuinely works here. It allows you to really see some of their influences. Just Like You is very generic. Just Like You is very generic. That is just simply true about this song, and you can't really argue that. They make it work. They get their message across very clearly. The verses and chorus are solid as hell, and this is their first really good bridge, and I'm not mad at it. Of course, I Hate Everything About You is that song. It is the song for this band. More Than Never Too Late, Animal I've Become, Riot, Pain, everything. This is the song for this band, and god damn it, there's a fucking reason for it. I've said it time and time again, this song is edgy as fuck, but they take all of that angst and make a fucking banger with it. The bridge is also fantastic, and there's a reason why this was their first big song. It's still that good. Home. Home is when I really started paying attention to this record. This song is the reason why I wanted to listen to the entire thing. And I said finally understanding the lyrics is kind of crazy. This song is basically about a partner being upset because their significant other is always getting high when they get home. The significant other then gets angry because they can't give up their drug of choice, and that causes the relationship and home to become toxic. Great song, best song so far. Scared is so fucking good. God, I love this song. That opening riff is fantastic, and everything else is just great. I take it back. This song is my favorite. The rhythm section at the start of Let You Down is cool. I like it a lot. In saying that, I don't love this song. It's good, but I do think it will continue to be forgettable, and it has, and Let You Down will always be forgettable to me. I can't help it, it just will. The bridge almost feels like something they'd write later, and honestly, it bangs hard. I just don't really like the chorus that much, and as well as that, I find the comment there of the bridge almost feels like something they'd write later very interesting, because it's really funny because if you look at who's credited on Let You Down, Matt Walst is credited as a writer on this song, even way back in the self-titled record, that era, super early in the band, which I find very interesting. Track 7 is Now or Never, and I said that was one that I really liked 5 years ago when preparing for what was going to be the 3 Days Grace retrospective that Tyson and I were going to do, that we never did. Genuinely, I do still like this song. I like that the bridge calls back to the quiet opening, and also Adam gets some points for actually using the lyric yearning. Again, I like the bass in Born Like This. I feel Brad normally has a pretty understated role in the band. He plays what's necessary, but not too flashy. But he has a cool and identifiable bass line here. This song is good, but again, I think it might still be kind of forgettable later on. There are parts that I do really like, though. I've gone through different stages with Drown. I originally didn't like it at all, then the acoustic version made me like the album version, and now 5 years later, I still dig this song. I like this song, and the chorus has a melody that I like a lot. The solo is also really cool, and also, side note, 3 Days Grace doesn't really solo that much, and they do, but just not as much as their contemporaries, and not as much as they could. I said I still like the opening riff and instrumental to Wake Up. Hell, I do still like the chorus quite a bit. I don't love this song, but hear it again, I think it is a standout. I think I just let that one shitty line cloud my judgment on this song, and that's absolutely true. I let the really shitty line of "you're just not drunk enough to fuck" cloud my judgment. And again, that's a shitty ass line. That's a bad lyric. Shame on Adam for writing that. It's a bad fucking lyric. I will never stop shouting that from the rooftops. But in saying that, yeah, no, Breakup's a good song. It's a standout, quite honestly. Lyrically, I said this song could also be a follow-up to Home. That same toxic relationship from before could be on display here. And I still feel that way. Again, I have no idea if that was the intention, but that's my headcanon. And I'm sticking with it. Then I said, holy shit, I forgot just how much Take Me Under feels like a 1X song. Musically, this song really does feel like it'd be at home on 1X. I mean, even with my issues with 1X, and they are there, this song bangs. The fact it does feel like it belongs on the next record just makes it better to me, because it also doesn't feel out of place here either. I forgot just how much this song fucks. So good. And then Overrated kicks off like the record opens. This song gets grungy, and that's just cool. It has very quiet verses and a loud chorus, and it's a good, fitting way to end this record. And yeah, overall, I was genuinely surprised that I do still like the self-titled record as much as I do. That was a pleasant surprise, to be honest. But my ranking for it is Scared is my favorite. It still is. I still love that song completely. Like, I love that song. Home is number 2, for sure. It's always... Home used to be number 1, and it's still right up there beside Scared for me. And then Take Me Under, Drown, I Hate Everything About You, Now or Never, Overrated, Burn, Wake Up, Born Like This, Let You Down, Just Like You. And then we move on to their third record, which is what I listened to next. And that is album number 25 on April 4th, 2024. That's 3 Days Grace's, like I said, third record, Life Starts Now. I said re-listening to the band's records, it's more clear now that Adam's voice is just iconic to me. Matt also has a distinct voice, but a lot of the times he still feels like he hasn't really been able to lock things in. And I also wanted to mention that in terms of the entire band's playing, this might be my favorite album from them, because everyone here really feels like they're just playing their asses off. It's not my favorite 3 Days Grace record. That will always be Transit of Venus. But in terms of, like, again, the entire band's playing, everyone just feels like the most fired up, firing on all cylinders, playing their asses off on Life Starts Now. But we move on to the actual songs on the record, and I started off by saying I don't really understand why I used to hate Bitter Taste, and I hated it with a burning passion, and I don't understand it now. It's a totally fine song. I don't love it, but I do think it's fine. It's also a perfect song to open this album. Also, the solo's great. Neil's drumming is actually really good near the end of the song, and Neil, like I was saying with Brad on the self-titled record, has never been a super flashy player, but his drums are really good on Bitter Taste. Then I said, I mean, Break is Break. This is obviously a good song, and I also like Brad's bass work here too. World So Cold was probably my first favorite from this record, and it's still great. Once again, I think this record is just getting better. The entire song, especially the chorus, goes super hard. My fave right here, Lost in You. I don't care what anyone says, this song is special. This song just hits me in the feels every time. And I even included an emoji, which I never use. Like, I don't use emojis outside of... I like using :P and semi:P, just because I love sticking my tongue out. But, like, those are, like, the only 2 emojis I use, so, like, I still use the old school, like, you know, old school emojis. But, yeah, like, I love using those 2, like the tongue sticking out emoji, but I actually use the crying emoji because it hits me in the feels every time. Lost in You does. And I love it. Then I said, I don't really care for The Good Life, but I like the instrumental. The Good Life is good if you don't take it seriously, but I do think to this point on the record, it's genuinely the weakest track. No More immediately hits me and takes me back to the first time listening to it. This song goes super hard too, and I love No More. And what do I have to say about Last to Know? Like, Tyson and I have talked about this song ad nauseum, and I love, yeah, I love the piano. The song has great build up, and everything and everyone sounds great. If I had to critique it in any way, all I can say is that it's a bit melodramatic, but the melodrama works incredibly well. It's a brilliant song. Oh, and this is the first. Then I said, oh, this is the first time I'm actually hearing those harmonies. They're so good. Then I said, I already know, and I. Then I said, I already know I still love Someone Who Cares. The pre chorus is fantastic, and then the chorus comes in and is also great. We had a bit of a lull in the middle, really small, but we are really back on track. I also like how we end the way we started. Bully is an interesting song. I like its message and I like it instrumentally. There's just something that feels off with it. It's the weakest song so far, but with better execution, it could be great. Without You is great, and I'm kind of upset with myself for always forgetting it, and admittedly, it's kind of started to be forgettable again, and I'm still upset with myself for that. Yeah. That solo is good, and is very memorable. I say, but I also can't remember the solo either. Why can't I... Without You is the real On My Own situation. A song I like, but you can't fucking remember it. Going Down is another song with a good bass line. And that's what I mean when I said that everyone... And that's what I mean when I said that everyone feels like they're playing their asses off here. Going Down is really good. And I already know how much I like the title track, Life Starts Now. Such a great way to close out the record. God, I love this record. I take anything back that I said. This is better than 1X. I don't think it's the band's best record, but this is better than 1X. And I do stand by that. I think this is a stronger record as a whole than 1X, for sure. My ranking for it is Lost in You, my fave, and it'll always be my fave. It's my fave from the entire band, period. No matter the album or anything. My favorite song from them. Then title track, Life Starts Now, Someone Who Cares, No More, Last to Know, Going Down, World So Cold, Without You, Break, Bitter Taste, The Good Life, and Bully. And then we move on to album number 26 on April 5th, and that is 3 Days Grace's album, Outsider, aka the second album with Matt Walst and the band. And right away, I do say, one thing I want to say is that no one on this record really feels like they're doing more than just the typical 3 Days Grace formula. And that is a big shame. And I said, I do wish the album was more interesting instrumentally, but as it stands, if you like 3 Days Grace in any way, you'll probably like this record, and I say that, but a lot of fans didn't like this record, even people who liked Human, and there's people who still die on the hill that Human's a better record than this, so what the fuck do I know? What the fuck do I know? Whatever, yeah. But anyway, we kick off with Right, Left, Wrong, which I said is still a good song, I think. I like the verses. Matt really does sound more comfortable in the role here, and it's a solid way to open. Unfortunately, I really don't care for the chorus. It's fine, but it's corny as fuck. The bridge is edgy, but it has nice build-up, and it still works with the song. I will always stand by that the mountain really feels like it would fit on Human. I don't hate it, but it's a really generic song, but a good message at the end of the day. Telling the listener to never give up is great, but it's generic and it's been done so much better by so many other bands. Speaking of which, I still don't like I'm an Outsider. It's literally just one big cliche. The only thing that I will give it is that it's catchy, but again, catchy does not equal good. And again, it's one big cliche, it's generic as fuck, and the whole idea behind the song's been done better by so many other bands. And that's not the last time you'll hear me say that. But Infrared, this has always been my fave on the record. Yeah, this is still really good. It's genuinely a highlight with Matt and the band. I also do actually like the lyrics and the comparisons between Love and Infrared technology. It's a very unique but cool comparison. Now, Actually did the rest of the notes on my voice recorder, so I'm going to insert those here. Nothing to Lose But You is still solid as hell, honestly. Off the top of my head right now, initial gut reaction after listening to it again for the first time in a long time, I still want to say Infrared's better, but I would say it's the second best track so far. My only issue is, will it remain forgettable? That we'll see later. I didn't hate Me Against You. For one of my biggest criticisms early on being the unnecessary use of fuck in the song. And no, as I'm actually listening to the lyrics again, no, Matt's use of fuck is quite justified. It makes perfect sense for the song. And like, I don't love the song. It's certainly not the worst song they've ever written. And honestly, it's fine. It's not the best song on this record, but it's also not the weakest either. It's fine. I mean, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it, but like, say, I don't know, if Tyson and I were in the car together and like this song came on, I wouldn't be mad anymore. I mean, also, I do want to say, again, as much as I don't think Sick Puppies You're Going Down holds up that well at all either, I do think that song still does the idea better. But yeah, no, Me Against You's totally fine. I didn't really like Love Me or Leave Me. Like, I was never crazy for the song when I first listened to it. I just kind of thought it was there. And I guess for the most part, it is still kind of there. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't really like it either. And I certainly wouldn't ever come back to it again if I had the choice. I don't know. Somehow I ended up preferring Me Against You of all songs to Love Me or Leave Me. Like, I know I have a more positive opinion on Me Against You now, but like, it feels weird. Because I used to not have an issue with Love Me or Leave Me. Again, it was there. It was a song that was okay, but like, I don't know. I don't really like the verses. I don't think it's a really well executed low tempo track from the band. And like, the only positive is kind of like the only positive I had for I Am an Outsider, and that's I liked the hook, but even then, it's not particularly catchy like I'm an Outsider is either. And I don't know, I think the hook is fine, but everything else about the song is not very good, I think. Strange Days still fucking rips. It's a great song. Definitely a highlight on this record. And I would say it's definitely top 2 right now for me, with Infrared and that being 1 and 2. Off the top of my head right now, I don't know if I'd actually say Infrared is number 1. I might actually agree with Tyson here and say Strange Days might be a little bit better than Infrared. Again, as of right now, I think they're both top 2 for sure. But yeah, Strange Days is still really fucking good, and I think I even like it. I think I like it more now. Villain I'm Not, still, again, fucking rips. It's absolutely killer. And again, I feel like, outside of Love Me or Leave Me now, I feel like my original thoughts of the back half of this record is so much stronger than the front half. It's still true. And like, for whatever reason, Villain I'm Not just sparks this thing that I really like with the band. And yeah, Villain I'm Not I think is super fucking good. I might like it more than Strange Days. Do I like them but either more than Infrared though? I don't know. But it's really fucking close. Top 3 easy right now. Chase the First Time is still solid as well. Again, I still don't like it more than Villain I'm Not or Strange Days. And I don't like it more than Infrared either. It is closer this time around with those two. So yeah, I think for sure now, Strange Days and Infrared are Strange Days and Villain I'm Not are definitely the top 2 for me. Not too sure of the order yet. Infrared's probably number 3 then, with Chase the First Time at a good solid 4. But yeah, like, Chase the First Time is totally fine. I do like it more than a lot of the other songs on the record so far. I still think a lot of this record generally is just better than Human. Even with my more newfound respect for Human as a record, I enjoyed that record a bit more, you know? So the new reel I've always liked. The chorus does still remind me of Somebody Told Me. Now I think it's mainly just the vocal melody, but yeah, like the chorus reminds me of Somebody Told Me. I like that actually quite a bit. I like the song, and I like come up with Infrared, how the lyrics were using two different, like we're comparing two different things in a pretty unique way. I do like that. They do that again here, and yeah, I think it works. I definitely like it more than Chasing the First Time. I don't know if I like it quite as much as Strange Days of Villain I'm Not. But, and I don't know if I like it quite as much as Infrared either, but again, those two are pretty close. And it's really solid. And honestly, I know I've always liked The Abyss too, so I can't wait to get to that one as well. But then I said, I really dig the pre-chorus and the chorus of The Abyss. The verses are cool too. I just like the song quite a bit. Kind of like with The Real You, this isn't the best 3 Days Grace closing track, but it is solid as hell. And it also fits this album pretty damn well. I do really like the loud screaming at the end of the song. It really fits with the song. Also, shout out the ending roll from Neil too. And yeah, I was genuinely surprised by Outsider. Like, I knew I preferred it to Human. I think it's a step up. It's a step up in a lot of ways. I think it's an improvement to Human in, like, every way. And I was genuinely surprised. Like, Right, Left, Wrong is corny as hell, but I still think it works as a good way to open the record. The Mountain is super generic, and I've never really cared for it. I do not like I'm an Outsider. But Infrared, I think, is still a very solid song. It's a highlight. I love The Abyss as the closing track. Villain I'm Not and Strange Days, I think, are easily two of the best songs on this damn record. And probably two of the... And honestly, Villain I'm Not and Strange Days, I think... I mean, hell, I would say even Villain I'm Not, Strange Days, and Infrared are probably the 3 best songs with Matt in the band, quite honestly. But again, like, yeah, the Abyss, like I said before, I think is a great way to close out the record. I still like The New Real, even if the chorus always reminds me of Somebody Told Me by The Killers, and I love that song so much. I love The Killers. So yeah, like, I love the comparison there. Chasing the First Time, you know, I think is a good song. Nothing to Lose But You is kind of forgettable, but I do still like it. And, like, the biggest surprise to me was Me Against You. This is the song I literally said was the worst song they've ever written, and I hated it with a burning passion. I hated it so much. And the fact that I didn't hate it anymore. I think it's fine. I hate it. Like, I hate my old thought on the song where I used to say on the song, Tyson and I've talked about it before, I used to say on the song that, like, Matt unnecessarily said fuck in the song. I'm like, wait, no. He says fuck very justified. Like, he's literally responding to something that feels justified in him saying fuck. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like, how the fuck did I miss that? That made no sense. But yeah, no, that thought point, like, that thought was just completely wrong entirely. He's responding to something by saying fuck, which is all that I wanted. It makes sense. It's justified with what he's singing about. And yeah, like, don't be wrong, Me Against You is still generic, and the topic is done better by so many other bands. But, like, in general, yeah, no, the fact that I had a more positive opinion of Me Against You than I used to, I thought was really interesting. I don't like the song, but I think it's fine, and the fact that I don't hate it, I think, is an improvement. And besides that, I was also very surprised by Love Me or Leave Me. I've never loved the song, but the fact that I genuinely just did not like it this time around was pretty crazy. But in general, the ranking for Outsider is Villain I'm Not, was my favorite, followed by Strange Days, which I'm sure Tyson will love if he hears this, watches it, whatever. Because that's his favorite. So to see it as literally my number 2 is, I think, will be really interesting. I think he'll like that. Infrared, I think, is number 3. Then The Abyss, The New Real, Chasing the First Time, Nothing to Lose But You, Right, Left, Wrong, Me Against You, Love Me or Leave Me, I Am an Outsider, and The Mountain. Then we've got album number 27, listened on April 8th, 2024. It is the most recent release from 3 Days Grace, Explosions. aka the third record with Matt Walsh as the frontman of the band. And I said right away, I could still understand why people would like this. Everything about this is very stereotypical 3 Days Grace, and if you just really like that, you'll probably like this record. Maybe I'm being harsh on this record, but I think I've just had enough of 3 Days Grace with Matt at this point. It just 3 Days Grace with in general, you know? Overall, I'd call this about equal in quality to Human, but I'd rank them about, and yeah, I'd rate them about the same. At least Explosions is short for a record, though. Especially a record with 12 songs, it's fairly short, you know? So I'll at least give it that. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's just like, I don't really like 3 Days Grace that much anymore. I have a lot of issues with them. And, they'll obviously always have like a very special place in my heart. They'll always mean the world to me. Because again, they were my first favorite band. They were like the first band I ever got into because I liked them. So that'll always mean something, but I do have a lot of issues with them now. And like, I just don't really care for them. And like, I don't really come back to them outside of this past month, you know? Except for like maybe like a very rare occasional time. Well, except for like a very rare occasional time where I'll just want to listen to a very specific song. And it's typically one that I already loved in the past anyway. Typically something like A Lost in You, which is literally my favorite song from the band, you know? So yeah, I think I've just kind of had enough of 3 Days Grace, and Explosions, poor little Explosions here, really was just the straw that broke the camel's back for me, you know? Because even if I still have a positive opinion of like an Outsider, or a Life Starts Now, or a Self-Titled, or 1X, or whatever, I still don't really like the band anymore, you know? I don't really like the band that much anymore, and have my issues with them, you know? And like I said, this record was genuinely like the straw that broke the camel's back. I've just had enough, and I'm just kind of done with them, you know? But yeah, so I'd say overall, Explosions genuinely, it's about equal in quality to Human, being real, and the lead single and the opening track, So-Called Life, is not very good. I would say it's not good at all. I don't dislike the instrumental, it's fine, but the lyrics are not good. And Matt's vocals are part of what I really hate about this band. It's kind of funny. It is kind of funny bad. Like, who wrote the chainsaw through the wall line? That's fucking ridiculous. So in a way, it's funny bad, but it's not funny bad enough for me to listen to it ever again. And yeah, it's not good. But again, like, I always laugh thinking about the chainsaw through the wall line because it's fucking ridiculous. It's a bad line, but it's funny bad. But then we have I Am the Weapon, which I said is better than the lead single and opening track, but it's still not great. The chorus does have a nice flow to it, but that's about the only positive I can say about it. And even the solo feels like something they've used before. And once again, Neurotic also feels like stereotypical 3 Days Grace. You at least get another vocalist on this track with Matt, but they're giving about the same vocal performance as Matt, just in a lower register. Like, this is better than So-Called Live, but it's not as big quotes around good here as I Am the Weapon. Big time quotes on that good, though. Gigantic quotation marks around that good. Because none of the first 3 songs are good. Lifetime was previously the only song that I kind of liked originally. It still feels like it has some heart behind it, and it is still really cool how they dedicated it to the city in Kentucky that got hit by all the tornadoes. And genuinely, I like the song. Genuinely, I think the song is a bit better than I remember. I still don't particularly care for it. I wouldn't ever come back to it, but it's easily the best one so far. We go from a song that at least feels kind of unique to another typical 3 Days Grace song. To be fair, A Scar Is Born does actually sound like something I'd like from the other Matt albums at the very least. And It is better than everything that's not Lifetime, so second best to this point. So far, Souvenirs is fine. I don't hate it, but I kind of hope they don't turn into a typical 3 Days Grace song, and there it is. They ended up doing that. It's still fine, but I probably won't come back to it. I'll be honest, I kind of dig the instrumental in No Tomorrow. So far, this might be the, again, big quotes around the word best, but this might be the best, more typical 3 Days Grace song on here. I don't mind it. I still think it's fairly weak when compared to the rest of their discography, but it's a highlight on this record. And I probably won't listen to it again, but it's a possibility. A very, very low chance, but it's a possibility. Funnily enough, I just noticed that a lot of this record has started with a softer intro. Again, I don't entirely dislike Redemption, is the song we're talking about. The lyrics should make the song super edgy, but somehow it actually feels a bit more uplifting. I'm genuinely surprised by this song. I like how they handle the topics here. I don't particularly like the song, but I like how they handle the topics, at the very least. And that does deserve a mention. I gotta say, I already don't like Champion. The intro is annoying, and it returns after the chorus. It returns after the chorus, too. Lyrically, this is also super generic and cliche. I understand what they're going for, but much like I'm an Outsider, it's very flawed in execution. Not the worst song on this album, though. And if I had to choose a song called Champion, just a song called Champion, nothing else. God, I know people hate this song too, but give me Fall Out Boy's Champion from Mania. Another album people fucking shit on and hate. I take that song all day, though, over this one. I actually, unironically, I do like Fall Out Boy's Champion. Again, it's probably just some weird nostalgia because it was in the game WWE 2K19, and I have big love for that game. But, that's probably the reason why, but I don't know, whatever. Then we get to the song Chain of Abuse, and I said it's another song that I understand where they're coming from, but it, once again, needs better execution. I don't dislike the chorus, and I do think the chorus works. We have a piano-led opening on Someone to Talk To, into the second verse, and it's still low-tempo and fairly melancholic. I think it's a bit more interesting, and you can definitely hear Apocalyptica's contribution. Not bad. Title track, Explosions, also started slow, but quickly fell into the typical 3 Days Grace sound. I don't entirely dislike it. It's a fitting way to end this record. It's okay. I was going to say that I still don't care, but it's okay. And yeah, that's kind of the biggest story for me with this record. It's okay. I don't like it at all. I don't think any song is good. I think some songs are better than others, but yeah, I don't think any song on it's good whatsoever. It's the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I'd already been quite done with the band for quite a while. I don't love them anywhere near as... I don't like... get rid of the word love in that sentence. I don't even like them as much as I used to. I've got a lot of issues with them, and like I said, Explosions is the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm just kind of done with the band overall. Even, like I said in this video, even with a more positive opinion of some of those earlier records as well, like I said, I'm just kind of done with the band, But to give you the ranking, I said Lifetime I thought was easily the best song on the record, followed by Redemption, No Tomorrow, Someone to Talk To, A Scar Is Born, Explosions, Souvenirs, I Am the Weapon, Chain of Abuse, Champion, Neurotic, and So-Called Life is easily the worst song on the record, but at least it makes me laugh every time I think about the chainsaw through the wall line. It's so fucking bad. It's bad, but it's funny. Like, who wrote that fucking line? It's so bad, but it's funny. It makes me laugh every time. I don't get it. Who wrote that fucking line? Anyway, whatever. And now we've got album number 28, which I listened to. Well, I started on April 8th, but I didn't actually finish it until April 21st, and I was periodically coming back to it. in that time span. And that is Elephant by the White Stripes. A record that is super nostalgic to me. My family had it on CD as a kid. And yeah, I remembered a lot of it, but not all of it. And I said right away, yeah, we used to own this record when I was a kid, but I don't know if I've ever heard it in full before. And if I had, I just didn't remember everything, but I did remember a lot of it. And I said, this is so raw and it just works, which is exactly what they were going for. A lot of the White Stripes albums, Jack and Meg would record in very short time spans as well. And I said, yeah, and you can just tell that they knew just how to make the garage style work. And there's a reason why they're kind of like at the forefront, or were at the forefront of the garage rock revival. But then, of course, like I said, I returned to the record on April 21st, but I was periodically coming back to it throughout April 8th through April 21st, and I finished it on the 21st. But yes, the first track is, of course, Seven Nation Army, and I said Seven Nation Army is Seven Nation Army. It's iconic, and honestly feels like it can't be overplayed. Maybe it's just me, but I do think Seven Nation Army is one of those rare songs that no matter how much it gets played, like, I never get sick of it, and I feel like it can't be overplayed. Instrumentally, it's great, even when it's incredibly simple, which is kind of the White Stripes' motto, after all, with only being two people, really, you know. I'm sure if they played live, they probably did bring in some other people, obviously. But in general, it was them, like Jack and Meg, working together to put together these songs and these records. And yeah, and that's their motto, really. They kept it very simple, and it made the simplicity work, and that's what's great about the White Stripes. I also said that I do like that this song also has 3 verses, which isn't all that common in mainstream rock, and that is true. But other than that, I didn't say too much else about the Seven Nation Army, but it's iconic. We all know Seven Nation Army. Then I said that opening riff in Black Math is great, and I've definitely heard it before, and like it transported me back to being a kid. But outside of that, I didn't really say anything else, and I don't really remember outside of that opening riff. But then we move on to There's No Home for You Here, and I said that also took me back to being a kid. Isn't it funny how things can do that? You don't remember something, but one small thing just brings it all back into your memory. This song is also cool as hell. Okay, how much of this album did I listen to as a kid? I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself is also very memorable. I remember really liking this as a kid, and it's still great now. Yo, I forgot Meg sings In the Cold Cold Night. I know she had or has issues with anxiety, but she sounds great here. I really like the lone and subdued guitar here. It lets Meg's vocals shine. It's different, and that's okay. Then I said another song for the MILFs. Jokingly, but, you know, that's just it. I meant that as a joke, but if you want to take it serious, another song for the MILFs, and I Want to Be the Boy to Warm Your Mother's Heart. And I said that's another song I do remember from childhood, and I like this a lot, too. A really soft song, and You've Got Her in Your Pocket, and I really like it. I said that riff in Ball and Biscuit is cool as hell. Jack's vocals here are more spoken word. And then I said, I want to say I was about halfway through it, and I realized, I just realized this is 7+ minutes. The solo sounds great, though, and I like the instrumental a lot, but I'm not really feeling this, and the length of Ball and Biscuit definitely doesn't really do it for me, which is weird, because I do typically like longer songs. I mean, Jesus Christ, Rush is one of my favorite bands ever. But yeah, no, Ball and Biscuit I do think is cool, but I definitely wouldn't really come back to it, to be honest. The length definitely does harm the song to me. But we move on to The Hardest Button to Button, which I said just has a killer instrumental, and it's great. Then we have Little Acorns, which I said starts with a dude on a news broadcast, or maybe something like an episode of Dr. Phil. Something like that, you know. It lasts for the first minute of the song with a piano in the background. I do like the instrumental when everyone comes in, though. Jack's voice gives me a bit of Billy Corgan vibes here. This is definitely a unique song, and I dig it. I don't know if I'd come back to it, but it is good, and it has a good instrumental outro as well. Oh, Hypnotize immediately kicks off fast and hard. This kind of fucks. I immediately like the beginning of The Air Near My Fingers. I said this song really has Jack and Meg playing in tandem, and it rules, and the guitar tone rules here as well. Oh, Girl, You Have No Faith in Medicine fucks too. I love Meg's drumming here. This is going hard. Okay, I may have spoken a bit too soon. Repetition is kind of setting in here, but the guitar is also really good. And I said a really good but kind of silly way to end, and it's true that we love one another. But it's true that we love one another. It's a good acoustic song. It feels like a folk song that's telling a story. This is also very familiar, and I do remember it from my childhood. I'm wondering why there was a minute left when the song is done. It's just silence and dead air. But hey, it was fun. And there's also different vocalists on the track as well, which is cool. But yeah, there's not too much else to say about Elephant outside of my ranking, of course, which I said my favorite track on there was I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, followed by There's No Home For You Here, It's True That We Love One Another, The Air Near My Fingers, I Want to Be the Boy to Warm Your Mother's Heart, Hypnotize, The Hardest Button to Button, You've Got Her in Your Pocket, Seven Nation Army, In the Cold Cold Night, Girl, You Have No Faith in Medicine, Little Acorns, Black Math, with my least favorite being Ball and Biscuit. And then we move on to album number 29, which I listened to and finished on the days April 10th and April 11th, 2024. And that is The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. And right away I had to say, I know I've praised most records I've listened to for the album projects in both 2023 and so far in 2024. But My Chem really deserves all the praise they get. They're truly a special band. They won't release a new album, but they're special. And yes, I'm calling out everyone that still thinks they'll release a new record. Look, if they release a new record, I'll eat my words. But they're not releasing a new record. Get over it. But I also felt the need to say they went super hard on this record, of course. Of course, we kick off with The End, which I said perfectly illustrates what this album is about. It's a great way to open the record. It also flows perfectly into Dead. I love the guitar work at the beginning of Dead. This also really helps show the story of the album too, of course, of a dying cancer patient. Then I said, ooh, I really like the beginning instrumental of This Is How I Disappear. I like how kind of heavy this song has gotten at points. And it's also part of why I don't consider My Chem pop punk. There are elements, but they're just not a pop punk band. I love the chorus of The Sharpest Lives. Honestly, I almost think I'd consider them more melodic hardcore than anything else, genre-wise anyway. And I still feel like that's more accurate. At the very least, on like the first 3 records. I don't know what I'd consider them on Danger Days. But that's a different conversation. At least on the first 3 records specifically, I would definitely call them more like some vein of hardcore, particularly like melodic hardcore, especially like of the same era of like Rise Against with like Siren Song and Suffer on the Witness, you know. I definitely would say, yeah, that kind of fits together a bit more, and I would call, again, those first 3 My Chem records melodic hardcore. But we move on to the next track, which I immediately said, what do I have to say for the emo national anthem? Welcome to the Black Parade is absolutely iconic and should be treated as such. I know I've said I don't always want to hear the opening, but when in context of the record, it's incredibly fitting and it's a nice way to cool things down before kicking into high gear. And also when really listening to the lyrics, this song is almost kind of sweet. Almost a love letter to the protagonist, letting him know that he won't be forgotten. And I probably should elaborate on the first point there. Yeah, sometimes I just don't really feel like hearing the beginning with the piano. I know, probably blasphemous, and I get it. But sometimes, you know, I just want to immediately just kick into high gear, get like the really punky type beat right after the intro and Gerard screaming out. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't feel. Sometimes I'm just not feeling that specifically. And yeah. But like I said, when in context of the record, it's so incredibly fitting and it makes everything so much better. So yeah. I definitely have an even greater appreciation than I already had for it when thinking about that more. Also, I do feel the need to say that this is another record, kind of like Elephant, that like my sister had when I was growing up, and I know I'd heard it before. I still can't tell you if I've heard if I heard the entire thing as a kid, but there are songs there are a bunch of songs on the record at different parts of the record that I remembered. Some things I didn't really remember either, though. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah. Should probably mention that as well. But then I said, oh, I really love the opening to I Don't Love You. Like the opening of the title track, this is another nice way to bring things down. And I said, ooh, the tone in the solo is great. To be fair, the guitar tone has been great the whole record. And yes, I know, technically speaking, Welcome to the Black Parade is not a title track, but it's close enough. Get over it. I'm not arguing about that. I'm not arguing about something so dumb. Anyway, I said, oh, okay, House of Wolves fucks. At points in this song, Gerard almost sounds like a preacher. He kind of has that cadence, and it's such a banger. Cancer starts with another softer piano-led intro. This album has a very clear story throughout, and I really like that. I'm so used to narratively driven records being more like story-focused songs instead of the whole record. And yeah, that is true. Like, even something like An American Idiot, which I love and think it's a perfect record, that at times does feel a bit more like it's story-focused songs as opposed to the entire record. Because, like, you know, like Wake Me Up When September Ends doesn't really fit into the record at all, and like it's confirmed not to be a part of the story of the record, and I guess that's the only one really, but even at the same time, American Idiot's story is intentionally vague, so it's probably a bad comparison, but regardless, I do like that the story is throughout the entire record here. That was the whole point I was getting at. But I also said Mama has a cool guitar intro with little instrumentation. The instrumentals for the first half are very unique for this record. I haven't remembered every song, but this I do remember. The opening to Sleep is cool as hell, playing a voice recorder message. I obviously know Teenagers. Teenagers is a good song, but honestly, it doesn't quite feel connected to the story of the rest of the record. Like, it is, and I'm sure there is a way that it does canonically fit in. But when compared to the rest of it, it feels the most out of place. That's not saying it is out of place, but it feels the most when compared to the rest of it. But I also felt the need to say it's a really fun, almost classic rock song. At least it feels a bit in that vein. And I do like that. I said, oh, I love that lone guitar at the beginning of Disenchanted. This song makes me think that the entire album could be going through the stages of grief, which is probably obvious, but I'd still like to mention it, and the whole record's great. And I obviously know the closing track, Famous Last Words. It's absolutely incredible. I really love the guitar work in this song, and it's a great way to end the record. I don't know this for sure, but I almost think this could be about the protagonist finding someone else, maybe another cancer patient, for example, and that gives them the will to keep pushing forward. Even if I'm off base, this is still an optimistic way of finishing the record, too. Which I think is really cool, because if you go back to the beginning, you know, it's definitely kind of like doom and gloom. It's like you first get the cancer diagnosis, and it's like you immediately start thinking the words, you think your life is over, and just like everything's gone to shit. But then, as you progress through the record, again, you're going through the stages of grief, and you get to the final track, Famous Last Words, and there is a bit of optimism at the end of it. And I do like that, you know? And then I did actually listen to the hidden track, Blood, because Spotify, of course, just has everything all listed together, so why not? And I said, you have to wait a minute and a half after Famous Last Words to hear Blood. And I said, that was very goofy, but I like it a lot. I am glad it was a hidden track, though. But yeah, it's just super silly and goofy, but I think it's fine and fun. And I actually didn't do a ranking for the Black Parade. So we move straight on to album number 30 of the year, and that is Siren Song of the Counterculture by Rise Against, which I listened to on April 15th, 2024. And right away, my first note is the drumming on this whole record is so killer. But we kick off with State of the Union, which I said is an in-your-face hardcore song. Its message is pretty clear, and it transitions into the next song seamlessly, which is The First Drop, which I said is more of what I was expecting. Banger. I immediately love the guitar work at the beginning of Life Less Frightening. It kind of reminded me of a guitar line that Spanish Love Songs would use, and this goes very hard, and is the melodic hardcore I love from this band, and the chorus is so good. I already know how much I love Paper Wings, one of my faves from the band, period. Easily my fave so far. I love the guitar in the background of this song as well. Last I listened to Blood to Bleed, I liked it a lot. It's been quite a while since I've listened to it though. The song is still great. I would say that this is the first point that the record doesn't get better than the previous song. Still great though, and I said, oh, that solo is very good. I love the guitar tone too. The opening to Them, These Streets Belong is fairly unique for this record. After that, it transitions into the sound that I know and love. Strong song. I really like the guitar and Tip the Scales, but I didn't say anything else. The opening intro to Anywhere But Here kind of reminds me of a pop-punk opening. Only that short intro, though. Actually, the chorus reminds me of a heavier pop-punk song a little, too. The song rips. I already love Give It All. It's a great hardcore song that just fucking rips. That chorus is so fucking good. It's probably the strongest song on the record, but Paper Wings still has to be my number one. Unique acoustic guitar opening before kicking into a great bass line on Dancing for Rain. This song rules. I love the return of the acoustic guitar in the middle of the song. I already know about Swing Life Away, an amazing acoustic song with a really sweet message. No matter what, I will always love this song. Also, fuck MGK and Kellen Quinn for their abomination they call a cover. Swing Life Away is great, though. And I will always bring up how bad MGK and Kellen Quinn's cover is. And MGK somehow isn't even the worst part of the cover. It's actually Kellen Quinn's vocals. Which, again, I like Kellen. I like Sleeping with Sirens. I like Kellen's vocals. But what the fuck kind of vocal performance was that? Okay, I'm not going to get into this again. I've already ranted about this before. I'm not going to get into this again. But yes, just fuck both of them for that. Because no, that was a shitty cover. Regardless, the original is great. Listen to the original. And then we have the closing track, My Demise Has Been Greatly Exaggerated, which I said they're going so hard in the chorus of. Killer way to close. I like the screaming later in the song, and they went harder, which leads us to our ranking, or my ranking, I should say. And yes, my number one on the record is still Paper Wings, with Give It All being a very close second. And then we have My Demise Has Been Greatly Exaggerated, Swing Life Away, Dancing for Rain, Life Less Frightening, Anywhere But Here, To Them These Streets Belong, Tip the Scales, Blood to Bleed, The First Drop, and State of the Union. And then we have album 31, which was a re-listen of After Laughter by Paramore on April 19th, 2024. And I didn't do a full, breakdown or anything. I know this record super well. And again, I was just in a very bad place mentally for a couple of days. And I re-listened to both Brave Faces, everyone from Spanish Love Songs, and After Laughter. Though I didn't do any sort of, I'm not counting Brave Faces in this because I never stopped listening to it at all. So it does not count for this. But it had been a little bit since I listened to After Laughter in full. Sometimes I just need both of those, as I've said before. But I said, God, this album is special. The juxtaposition between the happy 80s style music and the lyrics is great. Some of Haley's best lyrics that are oh so real. This album and Breakfast and Everyone are sometimes just exactly what I need. Fake happy is so fucking real. It's literally how I feel every day. I can understand why people wouldn't like No Friend, but I am not one of those people. I like the instrumental and the lyrics are important even if they're in the background. Tell Me How is basically the opposite of Hard Times. We open with an incredibly happy sounding song, and we end with an emotional song. Tell Me How is a great way to close this record, though. And then we get to the re-listen of Schmaltz by Spanish Love Songs on April 20th, 2024, which I talked about at the beginning of the video, so I won't get into it here. Which moves us straight into album number 32 of the month. Album number 32 of the year, listened on April 20th and 21st, 2024, and that is Punk Goes Classic Rock. And right away, I had to mention that I was not listening in order, because I randomly found the We the Kings cover of Caught Up in You, originally by 38 Special, and that immediately piqued my interest, and I listened, and I went through it, listened to the entire thing based on what I was the most intrigued or scared to listen to. And I said right away, We the Kings mostly understood the assignment with their cover of Caught Up in You. I like it, and I probably will come back to it at some point. It's not better than the 38 Special original, though, and there is one line in the song that the frontman of We the Kings, I want to say Travis? Anyway, the frontman of We the Kings, there's one line that he sings that almost makes the line a bit, like, more uncomfortable, and that's not what he was going for, obviously, but, like there's this little, like, pause while he's singing it that's just, like, I don't know, it makes it feel a little more uncomfortable, which, like, it's not meant to be necessarily an uncomfortable song. It's just one of those songs, where, like, it's a very unfortunate use of the term little girl, which, God, bands, stop using that term. Stop using that term. I think the only time I've heard that term, that phrase in a song that hasn't creeped me the fuck out is The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. Because, like, exactly what they were going for in that song, In the Middle. And it's a song about it's just an uplifting song, So anyway, regardless, not better than the original, but I did think the cover was fine. Then I said the Maine completely understood the assignment with their cover of Pour Some Sugar on Me, of course originally by Def Leppard. Everything worked pretty well, and it fit in with the rest of their early material. Well, at least Can't Stop, Won't Stop. I'm not familiar with anything else. I was worried about Envy on the Coast cover of All Along the Watchtower. Right away, when I heard the opening guitar, I realized they were covering Jimi Hendrix's own cover of the song. But any fears I had were genuinely put at ease. They did a really good job and just did a good job with the track. I was very pleasantly surprised by their cover of All Along the Watchtower. Before listening to Every Avenue cover Eddie Money's Take Me Home Tonight, I had to listen to the original. I just wasn't really familiar with it except for the chorus. The original, I said I like this quite a bit. The chorus is obviously memorable, and the rest of the song is good too, and I like the synths and the saxophone too. So then we get to the cover, and I said Every Avenue adds their own kind of quiet intro to the song that works, very similar to the way they open up Tell Me I'm a Wreck. But they leave the memorable melody intact, most importantly. They also get a female vocalist for the Be My Little Baby line, just like in the original. And I'm actually really impressed with this cover. Also, how is this cover the most streamed song on the entire record? I like it a lot, but Every Avenue covering Eddie Money doesn't exactly scream popular to me. I'm happy to be wrong, though. But I was very surprised to see that was the most streamed song on the entire thing. At least on Spotify. From what I know of the Somerset, Rock and Roll All Night could actually be a fitting song to cover for them. And I said it is certainly better than the original by Kiss. That's for sure. I do wish that they would have added some of the vocal ad-libs and just the vocal flair from the live version of the song, which have become iconic in their own right. It's still a fun cover, but with a good solo to go along with it. I don't love it, but you can only do so much with the original album version of Rock and Roll All Night. But they did a solid job nonetheless. I'm already nervous at the beginning of Forever the Sickest Kid's rendition of Crazy Train. I really didn't like the vocal effects at the beginning. Admittedly, I do think they're kind of nailing it after that, though, and I'm not mad at this at all. None of the vocalists are Aussie, obviously not, but they're doing a good job. They also left Randy Rhoads' solo alone, too. It's intact and replicated really well. I really like the drum fill coming out of the solo, and then I had to ask, was that in the original? And I said, no, it wasn't. It was a drum roll instead. And I said, how the fuck did Forever the Sickest Kids understand the assignment of covering Crazy Train? I don't love everything about it, but I'm genuinely surprised by it. Like, trust me, like, I was going to that cover, I like Forever the Sickest Kids, but I was going to that cover very much ready to hate it. And I was pleasantly surprised by it. And then I said, thanks to Rock Band 4, I'm a big fan of Your Love by The Outfield. I like the beginning, and I don't mind the use of the very MySpace techno sound they're using either. This is Icy Stars covering Your Love, by the way. I should mention that. It's not better than the original, but it works. But the first solo isn't really there anymore, and the cover goes downhill. Fast in the second verse. I don't like that. And then they start fucking screaming and getting heavy after that. Like, I don't care if that's just like what the band does or did. Like, talk about things that don't fit at all with this song specifically. Like, Jesus Christ. They do start to win me back a little, though. I couldn't imagine coming back to this, but I don't entirely dislike it. The synth choices here are very annoying, and using them as a replacement in the second guitar solo does not work. Hit the Lights just doesn't do the iconic intro to More Than a Feeling, which immediately threw me off entirely. But I also said the songs immediately, everyone coming in loud, and I was nervous again. I just looked at the times of both the original More Than a Feeling and the cover, and Hit the Lights cut the song down by more than 2 minutes. They did keep the iconic little riff in the pre-chorus, which is cool, and they literally just made this a pop-punk song, I'd assume in their style, which I'm not familiar with Hit the Lights, so that's why I'm just assuming that. If you know Hit the Lights as a band more than I do, leave a comment down below letting me know. I said it works, but it kind of feels wrong. It just, yeah. There's nothing inherently wrong with this version, though, and they do keep the high notes going to the chorus, and the vocalist sounds good doing it, and the solo is still there and sounds good. I do like this version. Do I like it more than the original? No, but I do like this version. I was definitely surprised by Never Shout Never's cover of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's genuinely good, but I think that's because it just sounds exactly like the original, but with Christopher Drew singing and and most importantly, not doing a Freddie Mercury impression. And yeah, that's about it, really. Like, it sounds exactly like the original, just with a different singer, and that singer is not doing an impression of Freddie. So yeah, I liked the cover quite a bit, but it's just like the original, without Chris doing an impression of Freddie Mercury. That's what I'm trying to say. I was also fairly surprised by Bless the Fall's cover of Dream On, one of Aerosmith's biggest and best songs, and they kind of nailed it. Again, like with the cover of Bohemian Rhapsody, it's not really too different from the original, but they did a really solid cover nonetheless. Also, shout out to those high notes being redone very well. Like, you know the high notes, specifically I'm talking about from Steven Tyler, late in the song. Like, frontman of Bless the Fall definitely nailed those high notes, for sure. But again, like I said, like with Bohemian Rhapsody, it's very, very similar to the original, just with Bless the Fall's frontman not doing a Steven Tyler impression, and yeah, that's cool. I gotta say, I don't mind the instrumental to Pierce the Veil's cover of Don't Fear the Reaper. Vic's vocals just don't really work for the cover. Also, the mood of the original just isn't there. The guitar work is still solid, though. It's not as bad as people say it is, but it's not great. They did keep, like, the bit in the middle of the song where it kind of, like, is a transitional period in the song, and that is cool. But yeah, like, the biggest issue with this song, this cover, is just Vic's vocals. They just don't really work with the song, and that's coming from someone who likes Vic's voice. Mayday Parade's cover of We're the Champions is about what I expected. Again, Derek is not Freddie, but they've done a solid job on this cover. Like I said, though, I expected this to be done well by Mayday Parade, because it's a mainly piano-led song done by Mayday Parade, who's also done plenty of songs that are very similar. It's literally exactly what I expected. It's solid for what it is, though. The Almost starts free-falling with the drums, and then it literally becomes a pop-punk song. They have a more subdued first verse, and the same with the second. They have a brief moment in both verses where they pick it up again, though. The chorus actually doesn't go as hard as I'd imagine. It's a totally fine cover, but not better than the original. I do think the vocalist does sound like they're trying a little too hard at certain points. It's a good cover, but it also does show that not everything is necessarily better as a pop-punk song. Then I said, this is an interesting way of doing the intro to Paint It Black from Versa Emerge. I'm not familiar with this band, but I like there's two vocalists for this song. And if that's something that the band just has, is two vocalists in general, I said I might have to check out the rest of their material. And I said, I actually really like this. Good job, Versa Emerge. This is another cover on this album that I'm genuinely surprised by and would absolutely come back to. And then the last cover I listened to was a Skylit Drive covering Separate Ways, Worlds Apart, originally by Journey. I said, I'm not familiar with the band, but I obviously know Journey and this song. Actually, let me re-listen to the original first. It's been a long time. So the original, I like the opening synth and the guitar work a lot. And I said, oh, Steve Perry was such a good vocalist. This really rocks. And I said, oh, I love that guitar solo as well. Then the cover, I said they kept the synth at the beginning before the guitar comes in. Looking at the times of both, this cover is a good bit shorter. The drums feel more impactful, and the chorus is much faster, which would definitely explain it being shorter. They also scream a few lines coming out of the chorus, and it honestly didn't bother me. In the beginning, I still think the original was better, but this does work. The screaming comes back in the background, with clean singing still there too, and it works. Some parts of this sound more metal than punk though, and it's definitely a strange fit for punk goes classic rock. But nonetheless, it was a solid cover. I was surprised. But then we have my ranking of punk goes classic rock, and I said, number 1, I ranked being All Along the Watchtower, covered by Envy on the Coast, as it was the most surprising and the most pleasantly surprised I was by any of the covers. And exact same reasoning for number 2, which is Crazy Train by Forever the Sickest Kids. Again, I went into that one ready to hate it, and I was so pleasantly surprised. They fucking nailed it, quite honestly. Again, another one I was very surprised by, like pleasantly surprised by, was Paint It Black by Versa Emerge, and the fact that the cover makes me more interested in checking out their material as a band. I feel like that definitely says something, and that's why it's number 3. And then number 4 and number 5, we have Take Me Home Tonight by Every Avenue and Pour Some Sugar on Me by the Maine, which are arguably actually my 2 favorite covers. They're the 2 that I felt like the bands understood the assignment the most out of any of the other covers. But I wasn't the most surprised by them compared to the 3 above them. So that's why they're 4 and 5 instead of the first 2. But they're definitely like my favorite 2 covers here. Then we have number 6, which is We Are the Champions by Mayday Parade, which is there because that's exactly what I expected it to be, and it's solid for what it is. Then we have Dream On and Bohemian Rhapsody by Bless the Fall and Never Shout Never, respectively. And they're very solid covers, but I feel like they're deserving to be very close to the middle of the list because while they are very good renditions of the songs, they're very, very similar to their original versions of the songs. Just with the vocalists of each band, just not doing a bad impression of the original frontman. But they are very good covers for what they are. They're just not too different than the original. Then I have More Than a Feeling by Hit the Lights, Free Fallin' by the Almost, Separate Ways, Worlds Apart by Skylit Drive, Rock and Roll All Night by the Somerset, Caught Up in You by We the Kings, Don't Fear the Reaper by Pierce the Veil, and Your Love by I See Stars, which I think is easily the worst song on this compilation. And now some of these I actually would come back to. I haven't yet, but I would come back to. Some of these I wouldn't. Like the bottom two here, for sure, I would not come back to. I may come back to Caught Up in You by We the Kings, but probably not actually, because I would probably just think about the original and listen to that instead. I wouldn't come back to the Somerset doing Rock and Roll All Night just because I don't... Here's what I'm saying for that. I don't like Rock and Roll All Night as a song, and I will not go out of my way to listen to any version of it outside of, listening to it for this record specifically. But yeah, in general, a lot of these I probably would listen to the original over the cover, but, yeah, there was a lot of solid covers, things that genuinely surprised me, and there were some, like, again, the bottom two that I won't ever come back to because they're bad. They are bad. But then we move on to album number 33, which we have Flawed Design by Saint Asonia, listened on April 24th, 2024, and it was, of course, a re-listen. I know the record very well. My first note for Flawed Design would be, I said I want to listen to this again because of how I've started to feel about 3 Days Grace. And I said 2 songs in, and this might be my fave thing Adam has done. And I still say that this is Adam's best writing, genuinely, and I think it's the best thing either band has done. But then we get into track number 1, Blind. Blind is still genuinely a great song and a great way to open this record. This is honestly top tier. This is honestly a top tier chorus written by Adam. I also like that this feels like Saint Asonia and not 3 Days Grace. I really like the intro to Sirens. Sharon sounds great, and it's really cool that she opens up the song. Adam also sounds great, and this is just another great song. This August Day was an early highlight for me on the record. It's honestly still a good song. The choruses are really hitting hard on the first 3 so far as well. How do I feel about the lead single, The Hunted, 5 years since release? I had to make a note saying, wait, is that Sully singing the second chorus? I only remember his part in the bridge, but really paying attention to it now, I really do think it's Sully in the second chorus, which I found really interesting, And I said, yeah, it honestly sounds like he leads the second chorus with Adam providing harmonies and backup. Either way it works, and I do still like the song. Ghost has always been a bit of a sleeper hit to me. I didn't think about it too much when I first listened back in 2019, but it grew on me in subsequent years. Ghost is very good, and I've only grown to like it more and more. I love the build-up going into the bridge, and the bridge absolutely rips. You can also hear the influence of Starset's Dustin Bates. Beast has kind of been the opposite of Ghost for me. I've grown to like Ghost more, and I've found myself being less impressed by Beast. Beast is still good, and it fits in with the record to this point, but there's a small part of me that does kind of hear some older 3 Days Grace in this song, which isn't exactly a good thing, as I'm not a huge fan of 3 Days Grace, at all anymore. This is more interesting musically, though. I genuinely still love The Fallen. This song really does show me that Adam is still incredibly influenced by grunge. No matter what band he's in, he's always used the grunge formula. Another Fight, solid. I love Flawed Design as a song. It's easily been one of my faves for quite a while. I really love the chorus to this song, and the solo is so genuinely great. I love the bridge right before the solo as well. I'll be honest, I don't remember Justify. I've heard it loads, but I cannot tell you anything about it. I like the riff at the beginning, and this song actually does remind me of 3 Days Grace. It's solid, though. And I said, ooh, I really like that solo. And I said, I really still like Martyrs. It's very fitting to end the record, and I do understand if some might be tired of Adam's bands ending a record this way, but I love it. Martyrs is a great way to finish the record, and that is something to note that basically every project Adam's done the final track on the record has always been like a softer song, whether that be, I guess with the exception of self-titled 3 Days Grace, which ends with Overrated, which is not. But like title track to 1X, title track to Life Starts Now, Unbreakable Heart, kind of, but it's a bit heavier than the previous two, but it's still kind of that vibe. And even then, they will continue it after Adam left as well with like The Real You. The Abyss is again kind of similar, in a similar boat to Unbreakable Heart, where it's a bit heavier and it does have some screaming in the background at the end as well. But it does start off a bit softer. And I don't remember the closing track to Explosions. To be fair, I don't ever want to remember anything about that album. But anyway, yeah, no, that's off topic completely. Completely fucking off topic. Yeah, I like Martyrs a lot. And the ranking for Flawed Design, my favorite track is still the title track, Flawed Design, followed by Ghost, Martyrs, Sirens, The Fallen, The Hunted, Blind, Another Fight, Beast, This August Day, and Justify. And then we move on to album number 34, Can't Stop, Won't Stop by the Maine, which I listened to from April 27th all the way through April 30th, 2024. And then I said right away, God, I love the vocals. Like, the vocalist of the Maine is so good. Like, it's a completely different style of vocals, especially for, like, where they started and, like, the scene they were in. But I love it so much. And I said, I don't know what it is, but as much as I like this record, I can never really find the words to describe it. And getting my notes for it was very difficult, actually. What I find great about this record is how timeless it feels. You can definitely tell that the Maine was just as influenced by indie rock as they were by the scene. And I said, everything I asked for is very good. It's just the pop punk I love. What else can I say? I love the opening of We All Roll Along. This feels a bit more pop punk to me, but it's not quite as hooky or catchy, which I guess is also true for the first song too. It doesn't bother me though, and I love it. I still remember Girls Do What They Want. This is definitely the most typical pop punk lyrics so far. I like this a lot though. I don't particularly care for the woes in the chorus, but that's more of a me problem. I Must Be Dreaming, I said this is another good song that I like a lot. Into Your Arms starts off with piano and features a prominent acoustic guitar. And I said, ooh, I really like this. And I said, oh, that bridge is great. Love it. Time to Go feels a bit more pop punk of the era to me. I know this record is considered neon pop punk, but I don't necessarily hear it on the entire thing. But a good song, though. I said, oh, the opening riff in This Is the End, so good. This whole record is just really good. Super strong song. Whoever She Is kicks off acoustic again, which continues into the first chorus. I love this song. Count 'em 1, 2, 3 kicks things up again. This feels more like the earlier tracks on the record. Kiss and Sell continues the previous song's momentum. I really don't like You Left Me. It's the part of the scene that I've never cared for. Admittedly, the chorus is a lot better than the verses. The guitar at the beginning of We'll All Be has a country flair to it. It settles into an indie rock sound after that. I like how you can hear talking in the studio in this track, and the country-sounding guitar returns later in the song. And my ranking for Can't Stop, Won't Stop, an album that I love a lot. I said my favorite track is This Is the End, followed by Into Your Arms, Count 'em 1, 2, 3, Everything I Ask For, Whoever She Is, Kiss and Sell, Time to Go, I Must Be Dreaming, We'll All Be, We All Roll Along, Girls Do What They Want, and You Left Me. And then album number 35 is 1X by 3 Days Grace, which I'm not going to get into because I did a whole hour-long video dedicated to this album because it was the very first episode, which is now live on the channel at the time I'm recording this, for TGC Unfiltered, a new unscripted album review series on the channel. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on 1X, link in the description. Check out that video. And then the last record that I did not finish in April, I started but didn't finish, was Sinners Never Sleep by Yumi at 6, which I talked about earlier in the video. So there is all of my thoughts on all of those. Again, I'm not going to give my thoughts right now on Sinners Never Sleep because there's no point since I didn't finish it. It's not being ranked. But let's get into the ranking portion of the video. So coming in at number 14 is Explosions by 3 Days Grace. And what can I say? I mean, you probably saw this coming from a mile away, to be honest. And yeah, like I said, Poor Little Explosions, for me, it's the album that broke the camel's back. Like, I knew I just didn't like 3 Days Grace that much anymore. I didn't really care for him anymore, and I was never coming back to him except for, like, the very rare occasion, very specific songs. And I already didn't really care for the Matt era of the band. I don't hate it as much as, like, a bunch of other people do. As much as, like, you know, basically half the fan base does. And there genuinely are still songs I like from the Matt era of the band for sure. But yeah, I just don't really care for the band anymore. And like I said, Explosions was just the album that broke the camel's back. It broke my back. And, you know, it had to be the worst one on the list. But then from there, we will jump up next to Human by 3 Days Grace. Again, you could probably tell this from a mile away because I literally said when I was talking about Explosions, Human and Explosions, quite honestly, are about equal in quality to me. Genuinely, yeah, I mean, I guess that's not fair because there are some songs I genuinely do still like on Human, whereas there's nothing I like on Explosions, but yeah, it's still the next worst of the month to me. It's easily number 13. Then we're going to have another 3 Days Grace album, and that is Outsider, because, I mean, for one, I genuinely said and still believe that I don't think 3 Days Grace has eclipsed anything they did with Adam and the band. No, again, and like, I like Outsider. There's a bunch of stuff on there I like, and I do think it's worth listening to. But again, I just don't think it's anywhere near as strong as anything they've done with Adam, you know? So, yeah, it's next up at number 12. At number 11, we have The White Stripes' Elephant. And, again, for as nostalgic as I am for the record, for as much as I do like some of the songs, there's some I didn't particularly care for, and I haven't really felt an urge to go back to it at all. Which brings us to number 10, which is the self-titled 3 Days Grace record. And it goes above a lot of the others quite simply because when I listened to it, I was reminded of why I liked it at the time, even if I still don't like it as much as I used to. And there are songs that I genuinely do still love, and there are, and again, I think it is a good record. I think there are things worth liking about it, worth listening to. And yeah, I think it has to go there. Number 9, I have Punk Goes Classic Rock, because I genuinely was pleasantly surprised by a lot of the covers on there. I don't think any of the covers are better than their original counterparts, but the fact that I was genuinely so pleasantly surprised by a lot of those covers, I think definitely pushes up a bit in the ranking. Number 8, we're going to have Saviors by Green Day, which, again, it's just Green Day. It's just like a return to form for Green Day, and I think it's very solid. Probably, arguably, the best thing they've done since American Idiot. Even as someone who does like 21st Century Breakdown, and does like some stuff from the trilogy, and like stuff on Rev Rad, etc. You know, but yeah, I think it is, as a whole record, better than... I think as a whole record is the best thing they've done since American Idiot, and I do think it's solid as hell, but it felt very right to be right about in the middle of the list. As everything else, I'm I just genuinely like more, which brings us to the actual middle of the list, number 7, which is 1X by 3 Days Grace, and this is kind of like the first point of like listening to the 3 Days Grace material again, where I was like, I genuinely would actually come back to stuff, you know? Like, I would come back to a good portion of 1X, whereas I wouldn't come back to the entirety of Self-Titled. I would still only come back to, you know, specific songs, and some more songs than everything, and some more songs on Self-Titled than, like, Human or Outsider, and I wouldn't come back to anything on Explosions. But yeah, 1X I would still come back to quite a bit from. I do still like the record a lot. It means the world to me, but it can't be higher than the middle of the list. But right above it is Life Starts Now, which, I mean, I literally said in the video that I think Life Starts Now generally is a better record, and I will wholeheartedly stand by that now, just like I used to when I was younger. I think Life Starts Now is easily a stronger record. And even, like, the worst song, I think, on Life Starts Now being Bully, I think still has more merit than my least favorite on 1X, you know? And, like, I just think Bully needs better execution. Whereas I don't think there's any saving Riot. I genuinely do not like that song. I think at this point I will forever hate that song. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's, like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's actually a bad song, but I hate it, personally. But yeah, even though I think Life Starts Now is a better record than 1X, I don't think it can be any higher than just one above it. Which brings us to number 5, which is Can't Stop, Won't Stop by the Maine, and it's just an incredibly good neon pop punk record that I love a lot. Again, you can tell that they were just as influenced by pop punk and the scene as they were with indie rock. It's a beautiful mix of the two together, and such a great, timeless way for the Maine to begin their career as a band. But I don't think it can be any higher because I do like the top 4 more, and I do think Can't Stop, Won't Stop definitely loses at least a few points in my book because I just can't find the words to describe it. Which is a skill issue, it's a me problem, but that's why it's at number 5. Which brings us to number 4, which is Flawed Design by Saint Asonia. And I still genuinely love this record. I think it's easily the best material that Adam has written. And I think the music behind it is really good and more interesting than almost everything instrumentally 3 Days Grace has done. Ever. And so for all of those reasons, I knew it had to be above everything 3 Days Grace I re-listened to for the month. And I did feel pretty strongly with putting it one above Can't Stop, Won't Stop. But the top 3, I knew had to be the top 3, which brings us to number 3, which is Siren Song of the Counterculture by Rise Against. And much in the same vein as The Sufferer and the Witness, it's just a super good melodic hardcore record. Very high quality from front to back, start to finish. And I love it a lot. There's not a song I don't like on it. And I think it's just really fucking good. But it doesn't beat out a record I genuinely think is a perfect record. And that's The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance at number 2. And yeah, I love The Black Parade. I don't think it's quite as strong as 3 Cheers, but I think both are perfect records, quite honestly. My Chem was absolutely at their peak, firing on all cylinders, and The Black Parade is great. Like, all around, front to back again. It's super, super good, and I love the story and, like, the themes and everything about it on that front as well. I think it's a very, very good song lyrically from Gerard. I think it's a very, very good album lyrically from Gerard as well. I mean, Gerard is a good lyricist, period. But I think it is definitely very strong lyrics from Gerard as well. But there is one album I listened to in a month that goes on the ranking, of course, that I think easily has to be better. has to be my number one, and that is Paramore's After Laughter, which, again, I knew that had to be number one when I thought about it more, because After Laughter for me is just, again, it's a special record, you know? It's a record that genuinely makes me happy, and, like, it helps me when I'm, you know, whenever I'm feeling a certain type of way, like, whenever I'm not good mentally, I can put on this record, I can put on A Talking Dreams by Echo Smith, I can put on A Brave Faces Everyone, and those records just, again, they help me in ways that, like, I can't fully explain. Again, they just make, like, those records just make sure I'm good, you know? And yeah, I knew After Laughter had to be number one. Again, I think it's a special record. I love it. I think it's easily Paramore's best. And yeah. Like I said, I knew that had to be number one. I'll always love and adore After Laughter. But that is the entire video. That was all 14 records that I finished in all of April, all done and dusted, talked about, and that's the ranking of them all as well. And it's been such a super long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. Comment down below, share it on social media, do all that good stuff, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.